Let's make one-day sourdough bread. But here's a little disclaimer to get us started. I am by no means a master at sourdough. I'm just an ordinary, average woman in her kitchen who likes to make sourdough bread and sourdough discard recipes for her family. When I began trying out sourdough a couple years ago, I found many of the bread recipes very difficult and time consuming, especially for a beginner. I just didn't have the time management, to be honest, to wait 2 days for a loaf of bread. I just thought that it could be done in a lot less time. So I did a lot of research and I found a bread recipe that can be achieved in 1 day, which works for me. So another disclaimer before we get started, the sourdough bread that takes 2 days to make and you're cold proofing in your fridge overnight, that will have a very, very strong sour flavor, the authentic sourdough flavor of bread. Mine, on the other hand, that takes just 1 day, the sour flavor is a little bit muted, so it does still have the sour flavor, but it's not as strong as a 2-day sourdough bread. And another thing is it will have a softer crust than a 2-day sourdough bread, which I prefer. I have 3 little kids that eat my sourdough bread, and having it a little bit softer for them is a plus in my book. So if you are a professional sourdough baker, you probably will not like this video, but if you're just an average, ordinary woman in her kitchen that wants to make sourdough bread for her family, then this is the recipe for you. So we are gonna start off with 1 cup of active sourdough starter. I fed this about 4 hours ago, so it is at its peak rise right now. And another thing that might make sourdough professionals cringe is I don't measure in grams, I measure in cups. I do have a scale that I can measure in grams, but I just find it unnecessary. It works every single time when I just use cups and teaspoons with my ingredients, so that's what I do. And I mean, sourdough has been around for thousands of years, and I don't think that they had digital scales thousands of years ago, and I think that they just made it by eyeballing it mostly. So I don't see anything wrong with using cups or teaspoons to measure out your ingredients. So we started with 1 cup of active sourdough starter. Then we have 2 cups of warm water, and we are going to use a fork to mix that in. I also don't use any special sourdough tools. I don't find it necessary to purchase all sorts of fancy tools to make bread. What you have in your kitchen is going to work. So we are going to stir this until it becomes milky and until there are no more clumps of starter. Then we're going to add 4 cups of flour. I like to use either King Arthur unbleached flour or Costco organic unbleached flour. And then we're gonna give it a good mix with our fork. And I almost forgot, we're also going to add a teaspoon of salt. And now we can give it a good mix until the dough becomes shaggy. So this is what we're looking for here. And now we are going to let it sit for its first rise. We're going to cover it and let it sit for 30 minutes. I'm using this bowl cover. It's got like this plastic inside, so this keeps the inside of the bowl moist. But if you don't have one of these, just use a damp towel. Make sure that the towel is damp, and we are going to cover it for 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes, so it's time for our first set of stretch and fold. First, make sure your hands are wet because it helps the dough not stick to your hands. So we're going to grab one side of the dough like this, pull it up, and flip it over, pull it up, fold it over. We're gonna do 8 of these. So that was 2, 3, and every time you're turning the bowl a quarter turn. Here's 4, quarter turn, 5, quarter turn, 6, quarter turn, 7, quarter turn, and 8. And then we're gonna recover and we're gonna allow it to sit on the counter for another 30 minutes. It's been another 30 minutes and we're gonna perform our second set of stretch and folds, but first wet your hands. And we're gonna stretch and fold 4 times this time. Quarter turn every time. 2, 3, 4. And we're gonna cover for another 30 minutes. Okay, last set of stretch and folds. It's been 30 minutes since our last one, so we're gonna wet our hands. And we're gonna do 4 stretch and folds, turning a quarter turn each time. And now we're going to cover, and now this time we're going to let it sit for 4 hours. It has been 4 hours, so it's time to shape our loaf and get it baked. First, we're going to flour our counter and dump our dough right out onto it. I'm also going to sprinkle some over top. And now we're going to press flat into a rectangle. Then we're going to take one side and fold it to the middle, the other fold it over, and then begin rolling it up. We want it nice and tight. And then we're gonna try to get it as tight as possible by kind of pulling like this and tucking underneath. And just keep doing it until it feels like a really tight ball. And now we're going to place it on some parchment paper. Sprinkle some more flour over top. And then score it. I'm just gonna do a simple score. And now we're going to place inside of our Dutch oven. Put the lid on. And we're gonna bake this on 450 degrees for 25 minutes. All right, it's been 25 minutes. We're gonna remove the lid and continue baking another 25 minutes. All right, it just came out of the oven. And now we need to place it on a cooling rack. She looks perfect. Make sure to wait until it's completely cooled to cut into it. I hope this gave you the confidence to make your own sourdough bread at home. For more videos like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel.